What's going on, Hoop Report Nation? It's your boy Manny here, and welcome to another edition of the Hoop Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode 36. I want to say no more than 37, no more than 37 for sure. Our second coach's interview of the week. Obviously, we just had one at the beginning of the day with Coach Evan Belk, great from Sterling. I love talking to him about that. Now I'm love talking about another, best kept secret. Some would say in the NAIA with Coach John Williams. Coach, thank you so much. Spring Arbor women's basketball has been on a great rise so far going into the calendar year. So I'm very glad that you're taking this time away with me to be able to talk a little bit about your team.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Been looking forward to talking with you. Can't wait.
No, the pleasure is all mine. And the first question is kind of setting up the table. What was the focus going into the season this year? Obviously, you're part of the Crossroads, one of the premier conferences in NAIA women's basketball. You've got Indiana Wesleyan, you've got Marion, you've got a lot of these teams that are red banner and perennial national tournament teams. But then you've also got a very deep conference with yourself. You've got Huntington, you've got Taylor who's coming along. So what was kind of your mindset going into this year that you wanted things to be a little bit different for women's basketball for Spring Arbor?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to sound a tad cliche, but our first and foremost thing was just culture. Like we're going to talk about culture. We're going to build culture. You can't build a house without a sturdy foundation. So we were going to set that culture from the beginning. We had a pretty darn good culture anyway, but we graduated some crucial pieces. Had a lot of seniors graduate, and one of them was a three-time All-American. And so bringing in six freshmen and one transfer when you have half your team as new players, we had to set the table with just what our culture is, what it's going to become. And at Spring Arbor University for women's basketball, we say we have a culture of joy, putting Jesus first, others second, yourself third. And we solve that, or we attack that by this phrase Ubuntu, or this word Ubuntu, meaning I am because we are. We're not trying to find people that want individual recognition. We want to find people who can make someone next to them better. So from the get-go, that's what we were setting the tone with. But other than that, basketball-wise, we set the tone with defense. The past few years, we've had a okay defense, but we just had to choose to outscore teams. And this year, we were just hanging our hat on the defensive end, and so far, it's working.
No, it really has. And Ubuntu, for all those northern Boston Celtic fans, I'm sure that rings a bell. Obviously, I did doing my hoop head, my nerd stuff. I know what that means. I know what that word did for that Boston team in '08, and so I can only imagine what has helped with you guys. But looking at this season now, and you talk about culture, that obviously you got to throw in some benchmarks in there to be able to measure success. You can't, culture is that thing. You can't really put a number to it. You can't really value it, so you gotta have to do it in other ways. What was the benchmark for you going into the season when your focus is culture and you still want to win games? Obviously, you want to compete at a very high level. But what were some benchmarks that you set out for yourself, for your staff, for your team to say, hey, once we reach this point, I'm comfortable that the progress is going in that direction. It ain't always going to be linear, but at least that's the first benchmark along with some others that we have along the way.
100%. I mean, and people mistake the word culture of just like these kumbaya moments and everyone getting along, all that good stuff. Yeah, we want that, but also culture is just our set of standards, what we're going to do. Or we're going to have some long-term goals, but to achieve those goals, we're going to have a bunch of small-time goals, process goals that if you hit those, the winning takes care of itself. So you'll hear us for part of our culture, a lot of things we say like standards over feelings. Okay, there's going to be times we're going to hold you to a standard, or your friends are going to hold you to a standard, and it might hurt your feelings. Or there's going to be times that I have to get over myself and hold myself to a standard to be able to model it for our team. So, one, we set the table with some standards over feelings, but some of those like standards or some of the process goals that you're kind of referencing, simply we just say this goal number one, we want to be a team that no one ever wants to play. So, for instance, we have one loss this season, and it was to Marion, and they are ridiculous good. They're so good. But at the same time, I guarantee they didn't like playing us that day. Or like, so it was a hard game at the end. We each give each other the respect we're due, but at the end, they're probably like, oh, I don't necessarily really want to play Spring Arbor again. All right. And so we want to be a team that no one wants to play. Two, another process goal, and it might sound a little corny to people who just don't know our background, but like I'm praying for and I'm working towards the salvation of every single one of my players. Whatever I can do to help them know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, I'm going to do. We're trying to be the best version of ourselves, whether that's just in practice, whether it's in the classroom. Every single one of our players is going to have a one-on-one meeting with one of our coaches every single week, and we're going to talk about who you are as a person, what you do in the classroom, what you're going to do on the court, and we're really just going to set the tone with like we're going to take care of people. You win in life with people. But yeah, then we have process goals too of just like if we turn the ball over so many times in practice or so many times in a game, we're going to be fine. If we get a certain percentage of rebounds on the defensive end and offensive end, we're going to be fine. If we shoot a certain amount of free throws per game, we're going to be fine. And we have a certain shot chart that we want certain shots from certain spots. And if we get those kind of tiny goals throughout practices and games, we're going to be fine. And then something unique to us too, we have a floor value formula. I'm a big nerd. We have it all plugged in Excel. And there's just things like if you get a deflection in a game, you get a point. If you shoot 40%, you get a point. If you turn it over, you get -1. If you get scored on, -1. If you have a possession where you don't box out, it's -1. And we plug all the stuff in after we rewatch the game. We stat the games ourselves as coaches. We plug it in Excel, and then every player gets a floor value score of like what value did you bring to the team besides just scoring. And so we have a lot of little things like that. And we just say the little things make the big things happen. So instead of having these big goals of like, hey, we want to be a Final Four team, we want to win a Crossroads championship, we just have a bunch of process goals. And if you hit those, the winning takes care of itself.
No, absolutely. And you can see that by the way you have started this year. Obviously, going back to the beginning, you started 6-0, including a upset victory at the time. They were receiving votes, but now the number 20 in the country against Huntington, that was by 12. So obviously that was a very great win there to kind of get things rolling. And it'd be easy for me to say, or for me to ask, what game was the best out of that 6-0 start, because obviously probably would have been that Huntington game. But I want to go away from that. Aside from that game, what game in that 6-game winning streak to start the season was one that you were really proud of your ladies for, that really kind of made you smile at night, made you really happy by the way that they played, whether it was defense, offense, something intangible? What was another game aside that big upset victory over Huntington?
Yeah, I really believe that Rochester Christian game was pretty crucial for us because we were doing fine in our start, and if you look, it's at the analytics, the defense efficiency, things like that. Each and every game we got better and better and better. We were building, and we're just trying to peak at the right time. But Rochester Christian, we kind of put it all together. Like we were locking down, we were forcing a lot of turnovers, we were limiting the certain shots we wanted from them. Our offense was a little bit more fluid. It kind of all came together there. And if you look at it, Rochester's playing pretty well right now. And so we're going to be Rochester's biggest fans because it hopefully makes us look better too. But yeah, that game, we kind of put it all together and we had every single person on our team make positive contributions in many different floor value marks and in the box score. And so it was just really a proud moment for me to see every single person have a lot of success, and it ultimately benefited the team as a whole.
No, absolutely. And talking about Rochester Christian now, since they played you guys, they upset Indiana Tech. They recently upset Carroll. So yeah, that Rochester Christian game is definitely a nice little notch on your belt, and I understand why you guys are being fans. You talked about it momentarily there a few moments ago. That Marion game was obviously your first loss this season, and since then has been your only loss. And to me, and I know you know it too, they're one of the top 5 teams in the country. They are that good, and they've been that good for the past few years. But those are the games where you learn a lot about yourself. So what did you take away from your team from a coaching standpoint? And then what do you hope your ladies took away from that game in terms of, again, small goals? This is the end goal and this is the bar, so to speak. What do you think they learned from that about what they do really well in those small aspects of the game?
100%. I mean, it was a great question. When you think about it, I mean, just something you need to know about me, I hate losing. I hate losing maybe more than I like winning. And so it hurt, man, that game hurt. But at the same time, the best thing that could have happened to us this season was losing to Marion. Like, I can't believe I just said that out loud, but the best thing that could happen to us was losing that game. Um, I don't know. We got to tweak our offensive spacing. We got to tweak our transition defense. We got to tweak our press a little bit. All our players got to learn how slim the margins are every possession, possession by possession, and just what elite basketball looks like, and just how we don't have time to drop our chin or pout or anything like that. We just have to grind and grind and grind. What's the next? What's the most important play? The next play. And so again, the best thing that could happen to us was losing that game, just because the coaches themselves had to take an inner look in. Um, the players did too. A lot of film study, a lot of one-on-one meetings with players, watching film, just teaching the game a little bit, teaching some nuances. And I'm going to tell you, from the day after that, our practices, just the excitement at practice, the tenacity at practice, the energy at practice just was off the charts. And that just told me what kind of team I had, that we took an L and we got harder in practice instead of like dropping our chin and pouting. Like we were ready. They were motivated. They want more. They're hungry. They're just dogs. And so it was fun to see. Tough loss, but really good for us.
I can see that. And I will talk about the post Marion loss towards the end of this interview because I do feel like that was a benchmark for me at least of your season. Before Marion, you guys were looking a certain way, but since Marion, I think you guys looked even better, and we're definitely going to get into that. But for right there, I want to talk about the Crossroads League as a conference because right now this year to me they've been a top three conference. Just going down the numbers, you've obviously got your Marions and St. Francis and Huntington who are all top 25 teams right now. But then you've got yourself, you've got Taylor who's receiving votes, and Indiana Western who's also receiving votes. I think Mount Vernon Nazarene could be a really a playoff team you probably don't want to see just depending on how they're playing at that time of the year. So just talk to me a little bit about the conference as a whole. Well, what do you see this year specifically in the Crossroads? Maybe a little bit different from years past, and has it been this deep before into your best knowledge? Has it been like this where if you ask me Marion or the field, I'd probably say the field because I just feel like there's so much talent in the Crossroads this year that you really can't put that just to the side and say Marion's gonna be able to do this through the whole conference.
Absolutely. And just every year in and year out, the Crossroads is just a top conference in the nation. They're always got to end up in the national championship game, the Final Four, Elite Eight, something like that. Yeah, and this year is quite different. Usually, it's always a good conference and maybe a little top heavy. And this year, there's more parity than ever. I really think, with due respect to every team in our conference, I really believe any team can beat anyone. It's tough. It's brutal. I wrote on some of my notes, this is brutal. We're going to war, so and then every coach is very, very skilled and they're preparing their team really well. The talent in the conference is at an all-time high. But yeah, a lot of parity. And so I really think no one can get ahead of themselves. Everyone's going to have to show up on every single game night and just see and battle and not just not necessarily know another team's stuff or scout. It's like who can be themselves the best. Like if we hang our hat on something and someone else hangs their hat on something, who's going to bend, who's going to change, or who's going to impose the thing they do better. And so I just don't know. We're about to head into a brutal part of our schedule where we play two non-conference games in the rest conference and we get them all twice. And so eager to see what that looks like. But if I'm predicting it, I don't have a clue who's going to end up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I think the top 5 or 6 could all beat each other.
No, absolutely. I want to talk about why do you think, because you said it right there, the Crossroads always been a good, you said good, I say even really good. I think that this conference has always turned out national tournament teams. You have your names that people know, but then you've had teams that kind of just every now and then again sub each other out depending on what year it is. But what about the Crossroads makes it such a year in and year out? You're going to get some of the top-notch basketball. I've seen it firsthand. I've watched it on film. I know what that Crossroads League can be like. So what is it about it specifically that gives it that unique level to be able to create teams such as yourself, Marion, and a few others?
Oh yeah, and I just think, it starts with recruiting, starts with like how good the schools are as institutions. But the majority of the schools, 80% of the schools in the Crossroads are from Indiana, and Indiana only has two NCAA Division II schools in the entire state. And so if you are a low major Division I player, a high level D2 player, you usually end up in the Crossroads because that's this level of talent. People would rather go to that type of institution and that type of caliber of basketball. And if you look top to bottom on all the institutions, just what they do academically, every school in our conference is a top-notch academic school as well. And so I just think when you have 80% of the schools in a state that only has two Division II schools, yeah, it's going to be brutal. All that type of top talent's going to go in the Crossroads. They're going to end up there. So we're in Michigan, and there's a ton of Division II schools in Michigan. So we have a fine balance, like where we get a lot of our recruits from Michigan, but we also got to look at Indiana, Ohio, Illinois quite a bit too, just to tap into that local talent that the league's getting.
No, absolutely. Back to the schedule and back to the season so far, and kind of just going through how what we've seen this far. Since that Marion game, you've rattled off 5 in a row. 3 of which have been at home, and which you're perfect at in front of your home crowd. So just talk about a little bit about that, about protecting home court, about what these ladies, that level of just I want to have a good product every single time because we want to keep the fans engaged. We want to keep them coming out and supporting. So just talk a little bit about the message you send to your ladies about protecting home court on any and every given night.
One, I just think we're very, very fortunate at Spring Arbor. We have a very nice arena. We get to practice on our game court instead of a practice court. The majority of our practices, shoot arounds, private workouts, things like that. But yeah, Spring Arbor is a tight-knit community. A lot of alumni still live in the Spring Arbor, Jackson area. A lot of the professors, the faculty, staff, they're coming to the games. But I will say a lot of fellow athletes on all the other sports, they're coming to games too. And it helps that when we have double headers because then everyone can see a women's game and a men's game, and our men's team is very good as well. So it's fun to be able to get that double header. But I want to give some credit where credit's due as well. So we have a great scout team. We've got 8 solid guys that play on the men's baseball team, and they were all legit basketball players in their day, but they just happened to play college baseball. And so one, they help us at practice, but two, they're at the games, they're bringing their friends, they're bringing their whole teams, they're telling everybody. And so then we have a pretty good rowdy student section just hyping us up and maybe talking a little smack here and there in the games just to make the home court advantage actually be something. And so it's just fun to be able to play in front of your family, your community, and your peers. And I just want to give credit to them too because they make us better at practice, but they get people at the games too.
I I can appreciate that because that's how I started out on the women's side. I was scout team member. I was there, and obviously, people know I'm a GA now for the women's team at St. Thomas University. So, but that's how I started. So I can only imagine. We appreciate that. We appreciate you, coach, for giving light to the scout team guys. I don't think a lot of people know in the world of women's basketball, that's kind of a known thing that you typically do have a scout team, scout guys that come out and help. But people outside probably don't know that, so I'm glad we're going to give them a little bit of light, a little bit of love there. Looking ahead now to the next couple games, you talked about 2 non-conference games on your Georgia trip that's coming up here, and 2 very very good opponents. Obviously, an opponent that I know a lot about in Coastal Georgia, who's off to a great start this season, and then a number 8 team in the country in Rio Grande that is going to be or has continued to elevate as the season has gone on. Just talk to me a little bit about these games, how you're preparing for them, what the preparation is looking like, balancing that because it's gonna come right after Christmas. So you're gonna have that kind of weird time of like, hey guys, I enjoy your time, but also understand we got some big things coming up here before the new year. So just talk to me a little bit about that preparation and what it's looking like as we get ready for January 3rd. That's conference play, and then before that, obviously with those 2 non-conference games.
Absolutely. So on this trip, I mean, we're going to play Coastal Georgia, who plays a tough style. They're up and down. They love to run. They like to press. They like to turn people over. They like to shoot over 50% of their shots from three. So they're dangerous. And then Rio Grande is a very, very complete team. They play tough as nails, and it's kind of like a friendly rivalry with them. We've played them this will be the 4th time in a row we're going to play them. We played them in Puerto Rico last year and the year before that at our place, and just good coaches, good girls they have there. So we like to play them, and they invited us to play in this tournament. But it's going to be tough, like you just said. They're both quad one teams. So yeah, hopefully you get victories. But even if you take an L, it's a quad one game, so it doesn't hurt you as bad. And it's going to hopefully gear you up towards the Crossroads play because it's got to be the same type of caliber game once you hit the Crossroads as well. Yeah, and it's going to be a tough test because we have Christmas. The day after Christmas, we come back. We got to practice, and then the next day we got to practice, and then the next day we got to get on a bus. We're going to drive forever. And then hopefully we get an hour shoot around that day of travel, and the next day we play back to back. Play a game and play a game, then drive on back, then 2 days and then you got Crossroads play, and then it's pretty much 2 days of practice. Then you play a game. 2 days of practice, you got a game. And so before we let our girls off for Christmas break, we just said it's got to get real. January's real, all right. It's tough, it's long, it's sometimes boring because you're playing and practicing while school hasn't started in the second semester, and so who can exhibit that mental toughness and that resilience and fortitude and just take it day by day.
No, absolutely. And then especially those that post semester, that month in December where it's just basketball. And in that time right before school starts, like you said, that's where it gets boring, it's repetitive. And even once school starts, it's like you mentioned, it's a routine. If you got 2 practices, a game, 2 practices in a game. And that's where the boring and the kind of the drag of it comes into it. So it's definitely important to see how, the ladies respond to that. It's very, very good point to make there. Moving on to the numbers, you talked about you being a numbers guy. I like to think of myself as a numbers guy as well. And right now, you are in charge of a top 20 offense in the season. Right now, you guys are one of the best at putting up points. I want to say north of 80, about 83 points per game, I believe it is at right now. what was the mindset going into it? Because you talked about at the beginning of the interview where we talked about, culture change, but you also then talked about in the middle of the year, you kind of tweaked some things, whether transition wise, whether the spacing on the offense side of the ball. So what were some of those things that you tweaked, and why did you feel that tweak needed to be made midway through the season? That can be a hard thing to do at times.
Yeah. And it really, I just want to back up a little bit. About a year ago, this time a year ago, is when we made a wholesale change to our offense altogether. So, one, we were trying to figure out ways that people could not double team Alana Nelson. And so we made that switch, and we knew what kind of recruits we were getting this year, and we already knew what kind of recruits we're probably getting the next year because we were kind of ahead on our recruiting a little bit. And so we said we got to rip the band-aid off and just do it. And so we did little by little, starting at Christmas time last year. And then we got to a certain point, till about Marion. Then we realized I just had to teach a few things better. All right. I had to teach not just spacing and stand right here, keep the spacing and what read to make. Because our offense is pretty free flowing. And it's not repetitive. It's not a pattern. And so it was a lot of me reflecting like, okay, they're only got to be as good as I can teach this. And so I had to watch a lot of film. I had to watch a lot of film with individuals. Then on the floor, we just broke things down and then we turned it into a small-sided games approach. So instead of just playing a lot of 5-on-5 or 5-on-0 sets, we're playing a lot of 2-on-2, a lot of 3-on-3, a lot of 4-on-4, a lot of advantage, disadvantage stuff where you might have an advantage for 2 seconds, but if you make your decision too slow, you won't have an advantage. And so we had to do a lot of that. And why we pick the offense we do, because it marries really well with our defense. And I told you we're going to hang our hat on defense. And I love that you pointed out that we're a top 20 offense. I'm going to rattle out some math stats for you here real quick too. But right now we're sitting as defense efficiency, about points per possession that you give up on the defensive end. We're number one in the country. Right now, we're number 5 in turnovers forced, number 3 in steals per game, number 4 in defensive turnover percentage. We're number 5 in the scoring margin of how bad we're beating teams. We're number 12 in the nation on points we give up, and we're number 4 in the country of the percentage of defensive rebounds we get. And so, yeah, I say that not to brag, but we're going to be pretty tenacious on the defensive end. And if we're going to do that and we're going to be like coming at people and being aggressive, I can't run an offense where I'm tugging on the reins. I got to give up a lot of control. So in practices where I have control, and I'm teaching the reads, and they have to mess up in practice because in the games, I can't control it. They got to make the read. By the time I say the read and see it, the play's already over or 2 seconds later. So I'm going to be high control, high support in practice, and in games I'm going to let it rip. They're just going to go. They're just going to play. They're going to have to make those reads on their own. And they're just going to have to hoop.
Just gonna have to hoop. I think that's the best line I've heard from any coach. Really, just they just gotta hoop. And I feel like that's what every coach always says. They just gotta hoop, and I think nowadays it's refreshing to hear how many coaches. Again, I don't know what number interview this is for me this year. I want to say we've already reached 10. It might be a little under that, but every coach said the same thing: defense to offense, and letting them play on that side of the ball. I think that's the day and age now that we are in basketball, where there was a brief moment of just get up a lot of threes, get more shots up than your opponents, high quality shots, all that kind of stuff. But now things gotten to that point of trusting the players to make the right reads. They're not always going to make the right reads, but you hope they learn from it. And like you mentioned, in practice, that's where you got to really hunker down of like, listen, this is what we're looking at. These are the options. And then just make what I always like to say, you're going to make a mistake. Make a mistake making a decision. Don't make a mistake because you kind of get stuck in between. You get stuck oh, should I have done this? Should I have done that? So it's great to hear that. And again, the defense is going to be amazing. I do believe you all are a defensive oriented team, and I think that's why I'm so excited to see what you guys do in Crossroads, because defense travels, and in a league like this one, you need that level of confidence in your system to be able to say, hey, no matter what happens on one side of the ball, we know we're going to get on this side of the ball, and we're going to be able to live with the results of because of that. Some of these key players, though, that have helped on both sides of the ball. Megan Zeist, I hope I'm saying her name right.
Zeitz.
Zeitz, thank you. She's had a great season so far. No such thing as a sophomore slump for her. She has increased her stats all the way across the board. She's putting up 14 a night on 42% from the field, including multiple 20-point performances. She recently had a 5-steal game to show off her defensive abilities. Just tell me about her work over the summer. What has allowed her to not be satisfied? Because she had a really good, really solid freshman season for sure. So it's possible she could have came in a little more satisfied and not necessarily as hungry, but she doubled down. You would have thought didn't have that good of a year. So just talk a minute about her process in the summer and what you've seen translate into the season so far this year.
Well, and like I can't say enough about her. And like if you look at her minutes per game, she's only playing about 20 minutes a game right now. Once we get into Crossroads, she's going to have to bump that up probably to about 28 or 30, and then she might even have some more stats. But yeah, she's the real deal. I mean, she on offense and defense, she can be 1 through 5. Like she's big enough to be a 5. She's smart enough to be a 1. She's smart. She's smooth. She can do a little bit of everything. She can score at all levels. But this summer was a big summer for her. Like at her end of the season meeting last year, she literally looked me in the eye and says, I want all of it. I want it all. Like, because I asked her a certain question, a rhetorical question throughout the season, and I told her she couldn't answer it. And then at the end of the season, she answered it and said she wants it all. Like she wants to get to the final site. She wants to be a Final Four team. She wants to be an All-American. And then before in our preseason this year, she flat out says, I'm ready to be the alpha. And so now she's taken over a little bit more. She's still so unselfish. She's so Ubuntu by helping people besides herself. She's all about the team, but I think she sees the game in slow motion. Like she sees everything before it's going to happen, and she can make plays on both ends of the floor. She can be coached. I don't have to necessarily kiss her tail. She wants to be told the truth every single day. But I'm gonna tell you off the court too. If you interviewed her here, you would just be blown away, just because she's one, so articulate. She's so nice, but she's brilliant as a person and a player. And just as a person that you just want to collect a bunch of them. All right. Like you could build a program.
No,
So,
absolutely.
oh yeah. So sorry to get in the summer. She's kind of local. She only lives about 30 minutes from campus, so she lived in the gym. She just did. She told us what she wanted, and we told her what it would take to get there. And so between me or the assistants, she was in the gym all the time. And the best part about her, she didn't always come alone. She would bring someone with her. All right. It might be her cousin who's a freshman in high school. It might be people on our team, but she seldom came alone. She would bring people with her because she's all about making someone else better too. And so, yeah, she lived in the weight room. She lived in the gym. She was just always there. She was always there in our arena.
No, absolutely. And those, when you have that level at the top, or when you're leaders of the team, everything else is so much easier, because now it really is player led, and player accountability is the biggest part of it. And so I can see the work was going to be there, and you just confirmed what she had been doing, because that's what it takes to be the alpha of any team, let alone a team in such a great conference that you are in. You also have two players that have kind of helped, not just on the offense, but also on the defensive side of the ball. Emma Samiska and then Haven Chapman, both are averaging 10 a night on offense. Again, very consistent sources for that. But it's the defense that I really wanted to talk about. For Emma, she's starting the conference in steals at 3.2 a game. Haven is 13th in the conference in rebounds. And obviously, from the steal side of things, you can argue a 1-2 combo there, where the perimeter is being really controlled by Emma, but then being able to corral rebounds. All coaches like to say, don't work hard for 29 seconds. You don't get that last second, get that offensive rebound, allow them to get, now you got to do it again. And that drains your defense, obviously drains you mentally. So to have someone like her who can clean up the rebounds on that side of the ball, and like you mentioned earlier, in that stat, being one of the top teams in the country, it's very important. So just talk a little bit about their offensive impact for sure, but then definitely their defense and what you've seen on that side of the ball for those two ladies.
Yeah, and both of them. You can say the same thing about both of them. On offense, they're both just pure power. Like they're just explosive athletes. Emma's a senior, Haven is a freshman. Um, I mean, Emma can get to the rim and finish with the best of them. I don't know if she even missed a free throw this season. She's that clutch right there. Haven, again, has a unique skill set of some great ball handling, can get to the rim, getting off two, but she can knock down the three as well. But you hit the nail on the head. They're both just have great defensive prowess, especially Emma in the press. Emma's a great read. So we put her in a spot where she's like a free safety. And I guarantee, like if there was a 7v7 football, Emma would have been All-American. Like she's put her at free safety and she just makes a read and just knows when to dart in and steal a pass. Emma has really stepped up with her on-ball defense this year and her side-to-side agility. Haven, I'm just gonna say Haven's scary. I'm telling you, no one wants Haven guarding them. So Haven and Emma can both guard 1 through 5. They'll switch out 1 through 5. They can front a post. They can box out. But yeah, Haven guarding on ball pressure. She doesn't care if you're 5'6" and elite quickness or you're 6'2". Like she's gonna lock you down. Like, and she gets this look in her eyes, and I'm telling you, like she's gonna lock you down. Both of them just so fun to coach because they talk as well. So they make people on the rest of our defense quicker because they tell every action that's happening. Doesn't usually happen for a freshman, but Haven's doing a great job with that. Emma's a senior leader. She's worked into this. She's so smart, so intelligent, and she literally makes people better by being like the loudest voice on the court for everyone.
No, I can actually I can relate to that part of it because that was me when I was playing. I wasn't the tallest, wasn't the most athletic, but people always say he doesn't stop talking. And people once you get older in this game and you realize how important that is, because when you're little you don't really understand it, but once you get older and you understand how important it is, especially at this level, you definitely understand the value of that. Last question for you here, Coach. We talk about your next 2 games, but then after that, your next, or including that, your next 9 are tough. You of the next 9 games, only 2 are unranked. You've got 2 receiving votes teams, and then the rest are top 20s in the country, including 5, 7, and 8. Obviously, teams like Rio Grande, who's number 8, and then you've got Marion, and you've also got St. Francis. It's a gauntlet. It's a gauntlet. We've talked about it, kind of being around there with what the Crossroads is going to presume or going to give you all in terms of test every single night, no matter who you're playing against. Why should the ladies on the team and as Spring Arbor fans be excited though for this stretch? Be excited for what's about to come because we all know what it can mean and what it can set up for in the long run.
Yeah, and most people, most normal people, coaches, players would probably be intimidated by that schedule. And we share that excitement. You said excited. Our fans should be excited. Our team should be excited because again, we reference Ubuntu, which translates to I am because we are, but also Ubuntu is all about like, how could I ever be intimidated by greatness? Because greatness only brings out the best in me. And so I can only be as good as I'm supposed to be when you are as good as you're supposed to be. So if that's the case, I want to play every great opponent. Like if playing Marion brought out the best in us. Playing St. Francis will do the same. Playing Iowa will do the same. Playing any team in our conference is going to be the same. So it gets us excited because we want to be tested. All right. We want to put our, head in the scrum and see where we stand. We want to see like, okay, are we legit? And if we're not, what can we fix to get there tomorrow? And so I mean, some people might be intimidated, some people might be nervous. I think our girls are ready. If we're being honest, we think we should be getting more love in the coaches polls and different things. When you look at the Massey ratings, you look at the RPI, and you look at different stats, and you look at the defensive things. Our girls actually, you want to be honest, they feel a little snubbed, so they're ready to play any and everyone because they want the chance to prove themselves. They're just begging for opportunities.
I will second that. I believe I said it. If not, I'm gonna say it here. I think y'all should have been in the top 25 in the last polls. Hey, it's fine. It is what it is. You just
Yeah.
add more fuel to the fire, add another chip on the shoulder. That's completely fine. I'm sure you guys don't mind the extra motivation, but I do believe come next polls and come the rest of the season, teams are going to start realizing. Teams are going to start realizing. Players are going to start realizing. Like this Spring Arbor team, I said at the beginning of the episode, I'll say it again. And in this case, a little bit different. Y'all are the best kept secret that ain't gonna be a secret for too much longer. I guarantee that's going to be a change in the near future. But coach, I appreciate the time. I appreciate being able to talk to you a little bit about this team, give light to this team. That's why I wanted to have you on to let people know, like, hey, keep an eye on what's going on over in Spring Arbor because these ladies are doing something really special, really historic, and y'all better get on the bus now because if not, we don't. If y'all wasn't there at the beginning, we don't want you on the end of it when it's easy and everybody likes to cheer. But I appreciate the time, coach. I really do.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Okay. We'll get you guys in the next one. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.